Hey, this is Mark Henry, author of Dancing with Energy, Healing Magic, and Mysticism, here to talk to you more about the occult and the paranormal. I want to start by saying that I just posted a brand new video on my Patreon for those of y'all who are part of my inner circle and part of that. If you are interested in subscribing, check it out. I'll put a link at the bottom. You have access to videos, and it's minimal cost for the videos. So, without further ado, let's get started. So I posted videos recently on were you the victim of magical attack and were you the victim of magical seduction. So I wanted to talk about some very basic protection ideas for the new person. So I want to kind of throw that out there, and then you can take what you're hearing and explore and take it and do what you can to defend yourself. So let's talk about number one. Well, let's talk about the reasons why you might be under magical attack. Well, one, you might have some type of pissed off magician who perceives that you've done them wrong, and of course they launch some type of magical attack against you. That's one. Maybe it could be you broke up with somebody who was a witch, or some other type of scenario, and they wanted to start some drama, and they chose to address it in this way. So some people do that, unfortunately. The risk is probably low if you don't know hardly any people that practice magic or witchcraft or any of those other types of things. But you can't rule out the possibility, because you don't always know what people do behind closed doors. Number two, offended spirits. It could be something like an environmental spirit, where you did something. If you have, for example, you lived in the country and you did some roundup, and it was near, on your property, and there might have some fairies, fae folk, and other things in that area that didn't approve, or it could be some other type of thing. There may be maybe a dead body lingering around with a restless spirit, and you happen to be trespassing on where their unmarked grave is. So anyway, you get my point. So if it's an offended spirit, or lastly, is if you are a magician and you broke an agreement or promise to said spirit for some work. That's never a good idea. So with any of these scenarios, one would be to apologize and to give an offering. And a lot of times that will do it. Acknowledgement and an offering. You can detect this by whether this was an actual thing. If you have some psychic perception by going into meditation, or talking with your guides, or maybe doing a card reading for yourself, or if you want to give someone else, let them do a card reading for you to see if that is actually the case, and then you kind of proceed with the intervention. Secondly, and hopefully that will settle things. Number two is fumigation. So when you think about that, we're talking about burning things. So we're talking about smudge, for example. That's become more popular. But I'm not going to recommend smudge per se. I wanted to recommend frankincense, or other either type of church incenses. They're very powerful. They have a reputation which is well deserved. They really kind of will clear out environment. Spirits, especially the darker ones, will feel very uncomfortable in those types of environments where there is a lot of burning. It creates a very high vibrational, kind of holy type of energy, and that's not amenable to a lot of spirits. So if you just really want to just say, everybody, get the hell out of my house, that would be a good way to do it. Third, spiritual baths. Now, you may not be too familiar with this. A very basic spiritual bath that you can do would be like a cup of sea salt with like like a half a cup of vinegar, so it doesn't dry your said that it doesn't, so that you don't dry your skin out, but the vinegar is not really necessary. You pour it into your bath, you get in, at some point start to get a cup and dump it over your head, and then do that, and you say some type of protective prayer. The 23rd Psalm is really good. However, there are other psalms that would be just as good. You can kind of look that up. So spiritual baths. Hyssop is another good herb for that. But what it does is it's basically clearing your aura. And I've done the sea salt baths plenty of times, and you come out of it feeling real light and feeling clear. Even if, let's say, you don't know whether you're under some type of attack, but you just don't feel well, this can still clear the aura out of a lot of psychic debris, impact of negative emotions, heavier type of emotions. You can actually feel better anyway. In fact, the way I feel about it is that if you aren't under some type of psychic or magical attack, it doesn't hurt to go through some of these things anyway, like the baths. It can't hurt you, and it could, most of the time, will make you feel better either way. One, because you did something just in case, and two, because the sea salt and the water will clear a lot of that stuff out. And don't put too much sea salt in it, because when you do the dunking, you don't want to have it super saturated. The salt will get in your eyes and all that. So you want to have a good, you don't want to put like 4 or 5 cups in your bath water. Just as a practical advice. Jewelry. This is often neglected. Now, I wouldn't rely just on jewelry for protection, but things like iron, which is very protective and kind of aggressive stone. You can wear that. That's been known to provide some protection. Also silver. Silver is good too. Silver, I may have mentioned this in another video, will also have an added benefit, is that if there is some type of magical force, someone did some type of work against you, a lot of times the silver will fight it once that energy comes in contact with you, and it can actually turn black, and that actually happened to me one time. So that was a good indicator, almost like a warning sign, a physical warning sign. And I thought about it, and I controlled for the fact of cheap silver and tarnish and dirt and all that, and none of that seemed to be a factor, so I took it as kind of a sign. Spiritual liquids, so we're talking about things like charged water, holy water, both of which are charged by a holy person. So priest, Catholic Church, everyone has access to that. You can just walk in and grab some. I've done charged water, holy water, through working with St. Cyprian, where the spirit of him, he charges it. It's one way of doing it. I have a St. Cyprian video if you want to learn more about him. Also, if you all are involved in witchcraft and familiar with witches' circles and the combining of the water and the salt and the athame, and you can charge salt water that way. And just what you do with the salt water or the charged witch's water, you go around and you just sprinkle it around. You can go and, the walls, put a little bit on the floor, sprinkle. If you want to go and do in a counterclockwise movement to kind of symbolize the reduction of negative energy. If you want to add the whole thing about the waning of the moon, further reduction, all of that helps. Thought forms. So that's number 6. So this would be more like the negative energy projected towards you, which thought forms of someone who they're really mad at you, they're upset, and it's just going from them and, you know, seeking you out. And this happens. It's happened to me quite a few times. A lot of times it's not intentional. So what you can do is you can take a cup of water, 2 teaspoons of vinegar, and 2 teaspoons of sea salt, and a lot of it will collect. Also, if you want to do this in your bedroom, if you have a nightstand or something, you put that in there, and it will, some people say that it actually is good for bad dreams, especially when bad dreams are the product of spirits or negative thought forms. Either way, that has some type of dark intent, heavy energy. I believe that the way that it works, because I really haven't used this as a way of detecting, I just use it as a way of doing, that if the water, once that you create the solution, after a day or two, if the water stays clear, then there really was no threat. If you start to see bubbles and all other types of stuff, then that means that that was what was collected in the water from your ambient environment. Okay, and finally, I would say do some type of spiritual exercise of protection. So what we're talking about here is, if you've sometimes when people learn magic, they learn some of the very basic things to do, and one of them is the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is really good for protection. So any type of meditation contemplation that uses that, which is, you know, conjuring archangels in the directions to protect you, white light, all of that, that will also clear everything out of your aura, the negative influences, and also make you project this energy of power away from your aura that makes you protected and less likely to be threatened by other spirits, or at least they might think twice. So that's about it. Those are my initial thoughts, the basics for how to go about and protecting yourself, and or at the very least making spirits and things think twice before entering you or your space. So again, check out my Patreon. Please subscribe and like. Have you ever been subject of a magical attack? Please leave a comment. Any additional thoughts you have on protection, because there are plenty more things you can do. Alright, well, you have a good weekend, and I will talk to you in a future video. Take care.